Hey y'all, it's Nancy, the Handy Scandy. Thanks for joining me for another crafty venture. Today is an exercise in monochrome. So my daughter and I have decided to do a monthly challenge, and July is our first month, and by random selection we are doing monochromatics. So my daughter does lots of different crafts, and she's just an artist in her own right and uses lots of different things. So with that said, I'm not sure what her project is going to be, but for me, of course, I'm a card maker. So a couple of cards. This stencil, do y'all see that gorgeousness, y'all? It is called the Glorious Petals Stencil, and it's a mandala of sorts, right? So I was inspired with this particular stencil by my sweet friend Jennifer Schoolcraft, and she did a card last month, I believe it was in June, with the stamp that's the same as this stencil. The stamp is no longer available, couldn't find it anywhere, but I had to have this in my life. So I went on a search and I found the stencil, and it's beautiful. So I decided to play with this one, and you can see that I'm spreading on some of my shimmery goodness from the Crafter's Workshop. Y'all, this stuff is gorgeous. If you like opalescence, you need to get you some shimmery goodness. So I don't know if you saw in the beginning, I did some ink blending with the Lavinia Elements ink. Really wasn't necessary. I could have actually just kind of blended the gray color into my on my palette, on my glass mat, and just blended that color right on into that paste. That probably would have made more sense than the way I went about it. But it actually tinted the shimmery goodness that was on the stencil. And of course here it's dried, and what I didn't show you was that on the little spreader piece, whatever that is called, the stencil pal, it had all of that tinted kind of gray colored paste, so I put that through the stencil on a white piece of cardstock. So that will be my second card. I just didn't show the stencil process here. So I didn't want to lose any of that panel. Its gorgeousness. So I'm making a 5x7 card. I have cut and scored and folded my card base, you can see, and I decided that because it's such a big panel in terms of width, it's not quite as long. This stencil is, let me see how big it is, 5 1/4 by 6 1/2. So it's an odd size stencil, right, in terms of the standard cards that we make. So I needed to add some length to it. So that's exactly what I'm doing here. I have some edger dies. I believe they're from Sunny Studios. And for anything that I don't know right off the top of my head, I will have it listed down below. I don't know that I'll link it, but I'll definitely have it listed. So I took my edger dies, this cute little scallop. You saw me kind of sizing it up to see which one I wanted to use. And I took it over to my die cutting machine. I have a Big Shot. It's an old Big Shot. But I ran it through, and then I trimmed it down, and now you can see that I'm adding it to my holographic paper. Now this holographic paper that I stenciled on is very thin. I want to say it's from Brutus, Monroe. And it's beautiful, and you can see all that prismaticness that it has. It's beautiful. I love it, but it's very thin. I don't even know what the weight of that is. Super thin. It's almost like a film as opposed to a paper, but I love the Prisma. So I've got my little scallop borders on the top and the bottom. It filled up the space on the card a little bit better. But then I felt like there was just too much movement, too much going on for the eye. The eye couldn't rest. So I decided I would take this frame by Pink Fresh Studio. It's actually 3 frames together, if I'm not mistaken. But I mounted it up on some of those Doris foam strips, and that just obviously gave it some lift, and it held all the pieces together. This Hello die is absolutely gorgeous. You hear my kitty, he's got to be involved. I don't remember who makes this die, but I will have it listed down below as well. But I love the font, it's gorgeous. And I've told you guys before that I don't like layering my dies, but this one I did twice. And I left it in the cutout. Does that make sense? You can see what I'm doing there. So hopefully that makes sense with my words and the visual. but I was able to stack them a little bit more precisely, and I hate the word precise. Again, my whole perfection thing. But anyway, I got them lined up pretty well. The O's are a little bit of a mess. Unfortunately, you can't see them close up, but trust me, they're a little bit of a mess. And then I mounted it, of course, on the shadow, and it's a beautiful sentiment, and I can take zero credit for that. So I think it's Picket Fence Studio. But again, I digress. I don't want to say the wrong name, but I'll have it listed down below. It's gorgeous. And I thought about adding some bling, and I decided not to. And I'm sorry that my little boy won't stop. He just wants to be involved. All right, so here is card number 2. This is where I took that tinted shimmery goodness and ran it through the stencil again onto some white cardstock and I let it dry. It's so pretty, y'all. And I am going to mount that up on a gray card base, as you can see. And I'm cutting out my sentiments. These are from Honeybee. It's the Bitty Buzzwords. Love this stamp set. It's stamps and dies. Love them together. Absolutely love them. And again, using that whole gray scale, right? So I've got some silver, actually. That tiny little frame that you see there under the shadow for Happy, that was just in my stash. It was actually some trash from a frame that I die cut, but I thought, you know what, that's almost centered enough, I can use that. So I do have to trim it down a little bit because the edges are messy, but I trim it down and I get it so that it's an actual frame, but it's very, very thin. Look at those sides, very thin, right? So as I'm trimming down this panel, I'm kind of thinking to myself, how am I going to mount that? I don't have anything that's that thin. But again, as I'm working on my card base, scoring and using my bone folder to get that crease nice, I remember, okay, those Dries foam strips, and I just trim them down. So I glue this beautiful stenciled panel onto the card base, and I don't show the process of me cutting the Dries foam strips down because it was off camera for the most part, but tedium, I can tell you, tedium. Yeah, very tedious, but I like the overall look, so I'm happy that I did it. And will I do it again? I probably will, because that's just who I am. But did I enjoy that part of the process? Not one bit. But I have it mounted, and I've adhered it to the card panel, and it looks beautiful. And again, it just kind of interrupts some of that, all of that beautiful goodness and that activity that's going on. It gives the eye a place to rest when you put a frame like that. And then, of course, it highlights or spotlights your sentiment, or if you were to add another image on there, whatever you decided to do with your design. But for me, I just wanted to obviously stick with the monochromatic theme and just allow that stencil to shine because it's gorgeous. And that shimmery goodness. Again, guys, if you've not tried the shimmery goodness from the Crafter's Workshop, if you like opalescence, if you like shimmer and shine and all of that, you really want to try this. My jar is an 8-ounce jar. I got it from Simon Says Stamp. I don't know if there's a smaller one available, but even if there is, you probably want the big one. Just being honest, just keeping it real. You probably want that. Now for these sentiments, I did not layer them because that just is not fun for me. And most people, when they get the cards, they don't notice that anyway. That's a card maker thing. It's not so much the recipient thing. And like I've said before, I give most of my cards away, and no one notices whether or not the sentiments are layered up. And if I'm going to do it, I want it to be done well. Not perfect, because I'm no perfectionist, but I want it to be done well. And when I layer, it's not done well. That's just keeping it real again. So, but I like that it says happy birthday. I almost never have enough birthday cards. And we have several birthdays coming up at work, and I just want to be prepared. So, my sweet boy. I wish you guys could see him. He's a doll. So there is my finished card. I put the frame and the sentiment on a little bit wonky just for something different. And then I pull out these gorgeous baubles from Trinity. Y'all, these are so, so pretty. And I think why the baubles make sense on this one and not the first one is because the panel, the decorative panel, is white with the embossing, not the embossing, but the stenciling over the top. Whereas the first one had the holographic paper with the stenciling over that. So it was just a little bit busier with that holographic paper in the back. But they're both beautiful. I'm very happy with both of them. Yeah, see, looking at that again, I feel like I made the right decision. If I'd put baubles on there, it would just be a distraction and take away from the overall look. So these are my cards, guys, an exercise in monochromatic. And I actually did a couple more, but I didn't keep them all in there. But y'all, this is Nancy, the Handy Scandy. Thank you for joining me for this venture. And I will hopefully be bringing you my challenge video every month. I can't remember what the other challenges are, but yeah, Chelsea's going to keep me on top of it. So guys, thanks again for watching. This is Nancy, the Handy Scandy. I'm out.